On today's show, we've got some huge news. Gavin McKenna, the prospective first overall pick in the 2026 NHL Draft, is taking the college route. He's committing to the Penn State Nittany Lions.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA scout at Elite Prospects. I'll be covering the USHL and the NCAA next season. So today's piece of news is very much within my ballpark. And on today's episode, we'll be talking about Gavin McKenna and his massive commitment to Penn State University in college hockey for this upcoming campaign. And we'll be talking about that alongside the expectations in his draft eligible year, as well as some other big pieces of news in terms of draft eligibles going the college route that you should be in the know of, as well as the big exodus of USHL talent going to the CHL in many parts to also plug the holes of the players that are going to the NCAA. So a big show here on today, but before we jump into everything, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So let's just start talking here about Gavin McKenna. Make yourselves comfortable, get yourself something to drink, and let's just dive straight into the episode here because Gavin McKenna is an absolutely spectacular player, and this move going to the NCAA is I think, watershed moment in many ways. We have never before in the history of college or hockey in general in North America seen a player make this kind of move in terms of an absolute superstar going from the CHL here in Canada, junior hockey, to college hockey for their draft eligible campaigns. The only argument in terms of an alternative was made a couple months ago with Keaton Verhoeff making the same kind of move to the college ranks. I believe he's going to the University of North Dakota here this season. But this is the first year where these types of moves are happening as a result of that NCAA unilateral decision last November to allow CHL alumni, not the only ruling that they made there, but in essence, what it means is that CHL alumni are now eligible to play college hockey, even after playing in Canadian juniors. This was previously not allowed. I did a full breakdown of this when that happened back in November, and I'll try to link that up above in the cards for you here if you're watching on YouTube, or in the description down below if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform. But this is a really big ripple effect from that decision is now Gavin McKenna's commitment to Penn State University. So for those who don't know, Gavin McKenna is a truly special hockey player. This guy isn't the biggest player in the world. In terms of if you look at him as a profile, 6 feet tall, 165, 170 pounds, he's a bit of a smaller player, but it doesn't matter. This player is supremely skilled. He's incredibly intelligent, and he plays the game that the modern style of hockey is dominated by, in my opinion. He's driven by pace. He's driven by deception. He's constantly trying to create small advantages for his teammates and for himself, and he's able to leverage elite skating, elite vision, elite goal scoring ability in tight. This guy can do it all with the puck on his stick. And yeah, he's still developing. The physical side of the game is still a work in progress, but he plays with ferocity. This is a guy who plays with a real high motor. He's not your typical skilled guy who lets his line mates do the dirty work in order to benefit with the points. Gavin McKenna goes into corners. He tries to dig out on pucks in those situations, and he could certainly improve in his efficacy in those battles, but the desire to get involved is there. And I think that's exactly where you want to be building from at this stage in a player's development. He's a 17-year-old hockey player who is second in the entire CHL in scoring last season as a 16, 17-year-old, scoring 41 goals and 88 assists for 129 points in just 56 regular season games for Medicine Hat this year in the WHL. And in the playoffs, he was arguably even better. He played just dominant minutes on the way to a WHL championship there for Medicine Hat, scoring 9 goals and 29 assists for 38 points in just 16 games. The numbers speak for themselves, but he's so much he's a player where even the numbers don't really encapsulate how he plays on the ice. I mean, numbers are always just stats, right? They can only paint that much of the picture, and these numbers are extraordinary, bar none. They're fantastic. But Gavin McKenna has a swagger on puck, a confidence, and an ability to break games open when others can't. And he's been leaned on game after game after game in his young career, proving that he's able to be the guy. And I think he's certainly going to be contending with the likes of Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini to become the face of this new generation of NHL stars in a couple of years' time. And I think that this switch for him going to college hockey, he's going to be challenged far more than he would have been in the junior ranks. I love that he's able to make this move now in order to exactly like add challenges to his plate rather than just playing on easy mode again in junior hockey. He's just far too good for that level of play, and I think this is exactly the kind of step that he should have been taking. So for him to be going to college is fantastic to hear, in my opinion, for a player that's already almost set records in terms of U18 Worlds scoring for Team Canada in 2024, scoring 10 goals and 20 points in 7 games, en route to a gold medal finish there for Team Canada, and doing everything for them when the game was on the line. And yeah, I think that this is very exciting for him personally. But you know who this might be even more exciting for? Penn State University. This is a program that had not even been a D1 college, I think like 12 years ago or so. It's not been that long since this team has been in the college, in the top tier of college hockey. So to see this team, this program be able to land not just a big fish, but an absolute whale of a prospect, a player for their team this season, very exciting things to look forward to. And it's a team that's already been gathering a lot of talent here recently. Whether you're looking at last season already, when they had players like Charlie Serrato, who just earned himself a 49th overall selection with the Carolina Hurricanes in the second round of the 2025 NHL Draft as a 20-year-old. He was a D+2 going into this draft, and still got selected in the top 50 because he was able to score 42 points in 38 games this season as an intelligent, detailed center who works hard defensively and facilitates play in the offensive zone. And you have another guy like Aiden Fink, who's this really dynamic, undersized winger in the Nashville Predators system, who's just been lights out fantastic since arriving in college hockey a couple of years ago. And on top of that, you've got other big name additions that are only being added here this summer to the program. Looking at guys like Jackson Smith from the Tri-City Americans, who just got drafted 14th overall by the Columbus Blue Jackets. He brings 6'4" of frame, and he's around 200 pounds. He's a heavy hitter, an elite skater, great in terms of defending the rush, and brings a lot of blossoming offensive activation habits and goal scoring ability and playmaking incursions later on in the season. And he'll be surrounded by so much more talent this campaign than he had at his disposal a year ago there in the WHL. So to see the steps that he's going to take in his development is going to be really exciting. And beyond that, you also have more additions, new guys like Lev Katzen, who's switching over from the Ontario Hockey League, an absolute like little spark plug of a demon of a player. Like, he's undersized, but incredibly physical, constantly searching contact, and definitely crosses the line regularly. But he's a player that also has a degree of pace and skill in his game. Could be a lot of fun to see there in college hockey this season. And I think that Gavin McKenna is just the perfect fit for this program. And it's a team that's going to take some really really, really big steps this season in contention for the Frozen Four late on in the campaign. I think that with the addition of Gavin McKenna, if they're not among the top two favorites, they're within reaching distance of it, even though you have other programs like Boston University and Michigan State and Michigan, and of course, Denver, the back-to-back champions. There's so much to like in terms of high-end NCAA programs here. And yet, Gavin McKenna is probably going to be the best player in the entirety of college hockey next season. So I'm incredibly excited personally to watch him take steps next season in the college ranks. And again, I'm going to have a front row seat to this as I'll be scouting the USA region for elite prospects for the 2026 NHL Draft. So I will be logging well over a dozen viewings on guys like Gavin McKenna, but he's not the only interesting player going to the NCAA for his draft eligible campaign. In the next segment, we'll be talking about other guys like Keaton Verhoeff, as well as Ryan Roobroeck, who might also be making the switch. But first, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it just a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's keep this episode rolling as we discuss some of the other NCAA talents. But before we dive into that, let's have some discussion around what the expectations should be for Gavin McKenna as a college freshman and just how high his NHL ceiling extends. In my view, Gavin McKenna is going to rival the likes of Macklin Celebrini and Adam Fantilli in terms of NCAA dominance. Is he going to produce as much as those guys? That certainly remains to be seen. I mean, those are two players scoring at 2 points a game, closer to that certainly than 1 point a game. And then this season, you had James Higgins, who was exactly around a point a game with Boston College on the top line. So where's McKenna going to fit? In terms of play style, he plays more similarly to James Higgins than the other two. He's not the same powerful, linear player like guys like McKenna, like Celebrini and Fantilli. He's not as powerful. He's not as strong. He's not as big as they are. But he is, I think, a better skater than Fantilli, certainly, and a more agile in terms of the edge work skater than Celebrini. He looks to go around and find different kind of exits from constrained spaces, almost more like Ivan Demidov style of on-puck offense. But what he brings is just this game-breaking playmaking ability and vision. I think that the way he plays is going to translate to the NHL a bit easier than Connor Bedard's because he's not relying on his shot. He's a player who's, I think, a lot more adaptable at the same age than Connor Bedard was. And that's not to take anything away from Bedard, who's a truly special talent, who was genuinely just as dominant as McKenna has been in the WHL. Maybe it's a slight bit less, but it's very, very close. And also have to take age into account, where Bedard was among the very youngest players in his draft class, whereas McKenna is a December 20th birthday. So he's on the older side of the 2026 class. So that also plays a role. But I think in terms of freshman campaigns in the NCAA, if he's able to stay healthy, I would expect him to be scoring over 45 or 50 points this season. I think it's going to be a whole lot of offense. We'll see if it's able to contend with Celebrini's numbers. I mean, we get to see if he's able to have the same kind of elite support like Celebrini had in a guy like Lane Hudson from the blue line, and that just fantastic chemistry being something that catapulted his numbers way up as well. But maybe Jackson Smith can play that role this season for Gavin McKenna. I could certainly see that happening. And I think that he's going to be among the top scorers in college hockey this year. Is he going to be the number one scorer in college hockey? We'll see, but I wouldn't be betting against it personally. In terms of NHL upside, obviously we're talking about a future first line center in the NHL, at the very least a first liner who can play on the wing and the left side, but a player who could really be the franchise cornerstone that a team builds around. And on top of that, could be a kind of borderline generational talent. And of course, this word gets thrown out all the time, right? Like, how many generational talents can we have? Was Bedard generational? Is McKenna generational? Was Celebrini generational? You can't have that many generational talents in a single age group. But I think that among those guys, McKenna might have the best shot at being the one generational talent from the trio. Going to have some really, really tough competition there for that slot. But I definitely think that this guy has all the tools necessary, and perhaps more importantly as well, the mentality necessary to make that happen. Like, this is a player that didn't grow up in a development hub. He's born in the Yukon, in Whitehorse, and has goes back there every single summer. And I think it's a wonderful story as well in terms of inspiring the First Nations, especially among like the territories in Canada, that even though you're on the periphery of the hockey world, seemingly, you can make it happen, not just as a player, but as a truly, truly potential superstar talent. And I think that's just very exciting. But I think so much of it boils down to McKenna's work ethic and his engagement and his level of buy-in. So he's a fantastic player. I cannot wait to watch him in college. So definitely expect to hear a lot more about him from me here on the podcast in the coming year. He's certainly going to get his fair share of the spotlight. But let's move on a little bit to discuss some of the other names potentially taking the college route among draft eligible talents. And we've got to be starting off here with Keaton Verhoeff of the University of North Dakota, a 6'4", 212-pound right shot defenseman who's also very young for the draft class, a June 19th, 2008 birthday, who's playing in the WHL this season for the Victoria Royals, scoring 21 goals and 45 points in 63 games. And he was just fantastic. He was elite as well for Team Canada at the U18 Worlds, scoring a goal and 5 points in 5 games. And he's a player that I think overall has just a true game-breaking ability, to the point that he's going to be, in all likelihood, the first defenseman selected at the draft in 2026. He's a massive guy, but he skates wonderfully. And he is also able to play a massive role on both special teams this year, both internationally and in the WHL. He's just going to be one of the bigger minute munchers that you're going to see in college hockey among freshmen this campaign. And just to read one game report about him written by my colleague Daniel G on his March 21st game against the Prince George Cougars, a game that Daniel will have caught live in Prince George. He writes, "Verhoeff's physical tools remain ridiculous. He pushes an aggressive mobile gap, pushing extremely active defensive skating. He makes higher end reads, even clogging a dangerous slot passing lane effort in the second period. His size helped him contain threats to the outside, and his penchant to win inside positions makes it hard for opponents who typically already have a size mismatch to win perimeter battles. He was a no panic man on the breakout, and overall, he's a likely top player for next year's draft. Add the hulking size, mobility, and separating hockey sense. He has #1 defender upside and top 5 potential in 2026 written all over him." This is a very fun player, and UND fans are prepped for a really, really fun season with another potential star there in their lineup. I think Verhoeff is going to be among the most fun players to watch in college hockey this year already. And you add that to Gavin McKenna, and again, there just isn't enough excitement to go around this year, I think, in terms of the talent that will be available here in college hockey. The last name I wanted to mention, and another player who may be pushing for a top 3 slot on draft day in 2026, is Ryan Roobroeck, playing with the Niagara Ice Dogs in the OHL, 6'4", 190-pound left shot center. One of the oldest players in the draft class at his September 25th birthday, where this guy's able to really mesh violence and skill and middle drive. He scored 41 goals and 87 points in 64 games this season, adding 4 goals and 9 points in 7 games at the U18 Worlds. This guy is just a really big body with all the skill to make it work at that size. He also scored 3 goals and 6 points in 5 playoff games. He is a guy whose name has been very much swirling around the rumor mill, who might be committing to college hockey in the coming weeks and months. We'll see if that happens or not, but if he does, wouldn't it be unbelievable to see a top 3 on draft day who are all playing college hockey? That has not been seen before. That would be really, really interesting. But I think this more than anything paints a picture of how the hockey landscape in terms of development and where players are going is developing, which we'll break down even further in the next segment. But first, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. All righty, let's wrap up the show here in the final segment, and we'll be talking a little bit more about the different ripple effects, right, that the NCAA decision had. And one of the big things to look at here is the direction in which talent is going. And that, I mean, where are they playing? And that is very much changing at the moment. We're seeing a massive exodus of talent from the USHL going into the CHL, as well as the USHL going into college hockey. So you're seeing a lot of that talent leaving that particular league. So this year's going to be fascinating to track the USHL to see how many high-end draft eligibles remain in that division, because so many are taking alternative routes going to the CHL. We saw that in the import draft, some big names going and leaving the league, such as Oliver Murnieks, who's going over to the St. John Sea Dogs in the QMJHL. You're seeing a lot of high-end talents taking those different routes, because even though they are planning on going to the college route eventually, they no longer have to stick with U.S. junior hockey. So a lot of these different changes are having effects this season. And I think it's interesting to kind of track also how this is going to impact the development of both American and Canadian junior players, because you're seeing a lot more competition, perhaps, with the CHL, seeing a lot more of this influx of players that were previously playing in the United States now arriving. So perhaps more depth players in CHL lineups are going to get forced out and have to go different routes, maybe going to the BCHL, maybe taking a different kind of step that that wasn't really a norm in the past, while at the same time also seeing the NCAA seeing a massive, massive influx of Canadian talent, as we're discussing here today, right? Whether it be your Gavin McKennas or your Keaton Verhoeffs or potentially your Ryan Roobroecks, these guys are taking the college route. Same thing with guys like Jackson Smith, who were just playing in the CHL last season, making that switch to college hockey. It's a massive reshuffling of how junior hockey landscape is looking in North America. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this is going to have effects, not only on these players' development and their draft stock, but also in terms of NHL scouting and recruitment, because they're going to have to kind of redistribute their scouts and their time to different leagues than they were in the past. The USHL is going to get less airtime in terms of what NHL scouts are looking at than in previous years, whereas the NCAA is going to get way more, and the CHL is also going to maybe get some more crossover viewings from American scouts who've been watching those players play for years before they made that switch. So just to talk about a couple of the names that have made this type of move from the USHL to the CHL, we have guys, like I mentioned, Oliver Murnieks, an excellent two-way center. He's Latvian, very physical. He's very middle-driven, responsible in both directions. And he's a player that I've really respected and found a liking for in the USHL here in the past year, especially now. Watching him play with the Sioux City Musketeers, he's a very engaged player. He's physically involved. And overall, I think he's a guy that's going to thrive in the QMJHL. He has better physical habits than a lot of guys in that league do. And also of note, this guy only turns 17 on July 31st. He's one of the youngest guys in this year's draft class and is already listed at 6'1" and 194 pounds. He scored 15 goals and 35 points in 52 games last season and played a massive role for Team Latvia at the U18 World Championships, as well as at the World Junior Championships. He's gotten loads of opportunities high up lineups internationally there already for Latvia. He's a guy that could easily be contending for a top 20 spot there come draft day as a projectable middle six two-way center. You also have a guy like Adam Valentini, a very detailed, intelligent player who's able to leverage his skill and create offense, who's playing with the Chicago Steel last season, scoring 17 goals and 39 points in 58 games. He's a bit undersized at 5'11", 185, but very solidly built. He's a very sturdy player. And with that motor, with those details, with those quick reads, I think he'll be a natural fit in the OHL with the Kitchener Rangers before making the jump to the University of Michigan for the 2026-27 season. So it'll be a stopgap year in the OHL before moving on to college hockey there for Valentini. And overall, I think you have a lot of these players that are just very interesting to track. Another one that's really stood out to me is Carter Casey, a goaltender who dragged the Waterloo Blackhawks all the way to the finals of the Clark Cup against the Muskegon Lumberjacks, ended up losing that series, unfortunately, but he was a massive part of the reason that they even got that far. And he did that while making a jump from high school hockey to the USHL just that season. He was just getting settled in the USHL when the playoffs began, and he was absolutely lights out fantastic. And he's going to Gavin McKenna's old team in Medicine Hat. So a lot to be excited for here in terms of USHLers that are going to really make their marks in the CHL. And one other guy I also really wanted to give a shout out to who has yet to fully decide on his path here next season. It's Tynan Lawrence. In my opinion, the very best player in the entire USHL last campaign. He's a tremendously dynamic centerman, very high motor at both ends of the ice. He's a strong skater, excellent handler, but more than anything, this is a high IQ, high pace creator who's incredibly adaptable under pressure. This guy was really like the offensive driver there for Muskegon, ahead of guys like Václav Nestrashil and Ivan Ryabkin. This was the player who was really driving the bus offensively for Muskegon all year long, and especially come playoff time, to the point that when Václav Nestrashil was asked which player that he was playing with in Muskegon he would wish to be able to play with for his entire NHL career, immediate answer without any hesitation, Tynan Lawrence. He's definitely a fun player and not the biggest guy in the world at 6 feet, 168 pounds as a left shot center, but another very young player, an August 3rd, 08 birthday, who is going to be an absolute menace wherever he finds himself this season. I think this guy could be easily contending for a top 10, maybe even top 6 slot on draft day here next season. And he's a commit to Boston University for the 27-28 campaign. He's definitely going to move that up to at least 26-27. But I'm very curious to see if he's going to go the college route here for his draft eligible campaign, or if he's going to the CHL. His rights are held by the Chicoutimi Saguenayens in the QMJHL. He was a 10th overall selection there in the 2024 QMJHL draft. I'd love to see him there. I mean, I could get some live views. I think that would be a bunch of fun, but I think college would be a fantastic place for him to develop. We've seen what that college year in his draft eligible season can have in terms of effects on a guy like Cullen Potter. I think Tynan Lawrence is that, but like with a booster pack. Like he's really, really, really dynamic. I think he's much more skilled and projectable in terms of how he is dynamic in his skill player than Cullen Potter. So a lot of these interesting storylines to follow in terms of individual players, but more than anything, just a massive reshuffling of talent in terms of where they are playing. So I would love to hear about your thoughts as well in the comments down below of how this is going to affect player development and drafting and overall just the hockey landscape in North America among junior ranks with this NCAA decision, because we're now seeing the fallout of that. These massive, massive commitments of guys like Gavin McKenna to Penn State and Keaton Verhoeff to UND. And it's only the beginning. I think this is going to be the new big development pipeline of having prospects going through the CHL before making the jump to college hockey on their way to the professional ranks here in North America. But again, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always greatly appreciated. And for your second listen, you can head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steel break down everything you need to know to build yourself a competitive and sustainable fantasy roster. That's all from me today. I'm your host, Sebastian Hyde, the USA Scout at Elite Prospects. Thank you so much for listening, as always, and I hope to catch you tuning in again very, very soon.